Hello. Today I'm going to be discussing my practical teaching session. During this presentation, I intend to draw up upon relevant theories and concepts that shape my pedagogical practice whilst critically reflecting on my future development as a pedagogue. Firstly, I will begin by reviewing the concepts of teaching games for understanding and social learning theory, which were embedded into the session. I will then move on to discuss the importance of inclusivity not only in my practical, but upon a macro-physical educational perspective. To conclude, I will then reflect on my overall session and discuss considerations which can help develop my future teaching practice. In the practical, I wanted to explore a non-traditional theory of learning rather than use a standard behaviouristic model. As a result, I decided to apply Bunker and Thorpe's concept of teaching games for understanding. Samara and Davis defined teaching games for understanding, TGFU, as a non-linear pedagogical theory where the learner is viewed as a complex system. According to Oslin and Mitchell, this is done by facilitating skill execution and tactical transfer within a game-based scenario so that the students can improve their decision-making skills and overall game involvement. A typical TGFU lesson will start with a modified game that introduces the students to the key concept used in that game environment. This was incorporated into my own session by placing individuals straight into a modified game of basketball. The activity involved a standard game of basketball except for the fact that there were 3 balls incorporated into the game instead of 1. Cho et al. States that modified games like our own session are useful vehicles which help to manipulate appropriate learning methods and align pupils to the objectives of the original intended game. Therefore, because the modified game environment was similar to the standard game of basketball, individuals should require little to no adjustment when it comes to applying their skills into the original competitive situation. By faithfully replicating these performance environments during practice, learners can engage in exploratory behaviors and become attuned to key perceptual information sources available in specific performance surroundings. With reference to our modified game, players had to assess the situation and use their prior knowledge of invasion games to evaluate how they were going to approach the task. A key objective as a pedagogue was to get individuals to identify key tactics and strategies towards how they were going to overcome their opponents. Teams successfully came up with a variety of tactics and strategies, including working in small groups within the team, calling for the ball, and having designated defensive and attacking players. In addition to this, through doing these activities, this enabled individuals to develop their spatial awareness, communication, and teamwork skills, which are all pivotal qualities in a basketball game. Whilst modified games are effective methods of learning, it is vital that the overall objective is relevant and can be applied to the normal game-based environment. In addition to this, the individuals must be aware of those objectives so that they can understand the purpose of the principles of the game. During the session, I wanted to ensure as much active learning time as possible. However, because I did not allow enough time to explain the purpose, some individuals lacked clarity in what the main objective of the activity was. Therefore, further consideration needs to be towards providing a clearer explanation at the start so that the amount of active learning time is effective and worthwhile. This works in conjunction with O'Leary's belief that if the pedagogue does not provide an adequate enough explanation towards the task, this limits the learner's knowledge and understanding and automatically caps their development. Another key concept of TGFU that I incorporated is shaping the session towards a more student-centered approach. In comparison to the linear approaches, where the coach is primary source of knowledge, TGFU appreciates that the learner holds vital sources of information which can help develop their learning. Thus, this holistic method allows the learner to acquire a less passive role in their learning and allows them to be more than just someone who absorbs the pedagogue's knowledge. By creating a more appreciative learning environment that focuses towards the learner's prior knowledge and previous sporting experience, this enables students to be more engaged in the session and become more motivated to achieve success. Throughout the teaching session, we allowed teams to discuss how they were going to approach the situation. This enabled the opportunity for collaborative thinking to overcome a problem and consequently broaden the opportunities for player decision making within the practice session. As a result, TGFU works well in conjunction with social learning theory. This is because TGFU opens up opportunities to transmit the learner's knowledge to other less experienced individuals. Johnson et al. States that how social learning theory focuses on small groups of students working collaboratively together to help maximize their own and each other's learning. Lafont et al. Supports this claim by stating that when individuals work together towards their physical competence, they begin to develop conversations that are more elaborate and centered on game strategies. Combining Combining these two approaches in the session were incredibly beneficial as it gave individuals an opportunity to evaluate the situation and enable them to apply their own knowledge. Despite this, as a teacher, it is often quite easy to slip into a passive role when applying these theories. For example, in the session, when individuals were not working collaboratively, after we switched tasks, I did not intervene despite one of the key objectives of the session was to focus on teamwork. Therefore, it is important that when participants are not following the main objective, to briefly freeze play and remind them the purpose of the session and how to incorporate what they learnt from the previous task into the new environment. In relation to TGFU, you can see from figure 1 that this ensures that part 4 is reinforced so that the appropriate decisions are made, which can then result in the correct skill execution and improved performance. Within the national curriculum, it is essential to ensure inclusive practice within physical education lessons. Corbett and Slee define inclusive learning as a recognition towards each student's individual differences and the ability to support and foster for everyone's independent educational needs. The use of TGFU in pedagogy exudes inclusivity. Bredekamp emphasises that the main purpose of TGFU is to build skill for all levels of difficulty and to support everyone's individual circumstances, whether this be age, ability, gender, and more. Motton and Ashworth also provide a coherent argument towards TGFU being an inclusive method of learning, as there is no principle of failure as all students are successful in developing their own performance. The way we ensured inclusive practice within our own practical was to remove more advanced rules in basketball from both the modified and standard game of basketball. This resulted in a more level playing field for the individuals who were less experienced to the basketball environment. Whilst this may not seem like a major factor towards inclusivity, if an individual who has less experience in basketball is continuously penalised for not following the specific rules, this can demotivate and humiliate them. As a result, being more lenient towards particular rules enabled individuals more opportunity of achieving success in the task. Corbett stresses how in order to allow inclusive practice in pedagogy, teachers must make a real effort to involve all learners by helping to build up upon current existing level of knowledge. Consequently, we approached this by reducing the complexity of the game and which enabled individuals to feel comfortable in the learning environment instead of being threatened by a new activity. Social learning theory also has the advantage of reinforcing inclusivity. Mastro, Pieri, and Scruggs argue that highly successful inclusive lessons are defined by the effective use of peers, supporting other students, and reinforcing learning through cooperative discussions. This approach enabled learners to offer various levels of expertise which can help support one another in striving to achieve the same goal. By combining the different knowledge each learner has, students are able to improve not only their own practice but also support others around them too. It could therefore be argued that applying this inclusive practice through social learning is far more advantageous, as you're not just improving your own performance, but also the rest of your cohort. Overall, the overarching objective any pedagogue strives to achieve is to ensure that the individuals are engaged in the process of learning. By going straight into the main activity, this caused participants to be highly motivated throughout the session and, most importantly, enjoy themselves. Whilst I believe the overall session was a success, there is always room for improvement. For example, if I were to apply TGFU and social learning theory again, I would ensure that the objectives were clearly explained at the start and throughout the session. This allows the learners to be prompted about the purpose of the activity throughout and as a result continuously reflect on their approach so that they can meet the demands of the task. Another key area I would adjust is understanding when it is best to interject as a pedagogue. Whilst it is valuable to get individuals to explain how they found the activities and provide some autonomy, probing relevant questions can help provide extra guidance and understanding. As a pedagogue, I need to be less apprehensive in freezing gameplay to discuss what individuals are doing well and what they need to do to improve. To conclude, I believe that TGFU and social learning theory have reshaped the role of the pedagogue and the learner. By being more informed about these various theories, I will be able to apply different approaches as a pedagogue depending on the different circumstances I face. Whilst adopting these non-linear theories can be time-consuming, it offers individuals an alternative method of learning through which providing more autonomy and responsibility to the learner and will benefit them in the long term. It can be difficult to adapt to these alternative theories, but I believe by applying TGFU and social learning into future practice, it will make teachers a more rounded and flexible pedagogue. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation.